church out in the plains of Montana, and that was his saddle and boots. And so he was always painting, and he was really good at talking to me about, you know, his technique, and he would ask for suggestions, and he would take my suggestions. I was, you know, 12 to 14, 15 years old. So I had this early exposure to painting, and I had a really good art instructor in high school who, you know, a lot of people have had trouble with art instruction because it's more about being on the cutting edge and do things that are thought-provoking and new and innovative. But we got schooled in color wheels and acrylic painting, and watercolor and printmaking and photography, all that in high school. So I was lucky enough to get a art scholarship to Boise State University.
Yeah.
And so I, the next slide, I'm not sure what it is. Um, I transferred into becoming a landscape architect. And I had a long career doing that, 30 plus years of doing that. And my skills in um, visual design paid off as a landscape architect. And I would do the views of your town, and then with the improvements, you know, and everybody's happy and the colors are bright. And we did a lot of that. These are some examples. Um, these are done using a 3D program, SketchUp, which is used to be a free program. And so the one with the sort of simulated railroad track is a park down the Hudson River. And so there's a 3D model of that, and then I export it into Photoshop, and then the trees and people are populated in Photoshop. And this is 20-year-old technology too now. This is old school stuff compared to what's happening now. You know, we did a design, kind of a concept design. Where I worked, we did a lot of concept stuff, and nothing ever got built. But a concept for a cemetery design. Next slide. We had a project in the Middle East, and I spent a solid year doing these kinds of illustrations. I had to do 70 of them, and it was the most difficult, unsatisfied, unhappy client all the way through the project. And then at the end, all of a sudden, everything was great, and they were happy with it. But I worked on these in the car, at home, in evenings and weekends, and we did a ton of these. It's the same thing where you use a 3D program, the one up in the upper right. You see the buildings and everything. Those are modeled, and then I would pick a vantage point, export it, and then the people and the trees are all put in Photoshop again. So same thing here. So next slide. So I decided as I'm winding up my career in landscape architecture that I wanted to get back to painting and drawing and doing things like that. It's always been a kind of an underlying interest I had. And I thought, what better place to start than to go here and visit my brother, who has an art gallery. This is Ennis, Montana, near Yellowstone Park. That's his painting in the window there, and his wife's in the other side. And next slide. That's him there. So this is fly fishing country, you know, and so he's done some of these. This is his painting there. And that painting, you know, it looks really large there, but it's actually not that far off. This painting is 5 feet in size. It's enormous. When you see them, they're just so full of color. They're just amazing. And he, like many artists, barely could get by for many years, and things just suddenly started taking off for him. If you go down to Cabela's in Cheektowaga, you can go in and there'll be fly boxes and, you know, line clippers and things with his graphics on them now, which is really cool. I go in there like, this is my brother's thing, everybody. So that's great. Okay, next slide. So that's a painting I did. I spent a few days out there, and that's him. That's my brother calling right now. That's so funny. Um, and I would do things a little differently now, but that was my first try at a painting that's 24-inch. And so next slide. Um, so then I spent about a year. I, I I wanted to start to learn to paint realistically. So I wanted to get my skills down pretty good. The painters that I like are actually really skilled, whether they become abstract or whatever. But I felt like I had to get my chops down, so to speak. So I did a lot of still lifes. I'd set up a little still life, and these are the boots that I now mow the lawn in. A little more green than that now. But the other thing I did is I gave myself permission to do really bad paintings. I spent a couple years just trying different things and styles and throwing it away. It's like if you're a musician and you want to learn to play the bagpipes, you don't want to record your first try at it. You want to get your skills down before you ever let that be heard again. So yeah, I did some still lifes. And this time I was working in acrylic, which I just had those in the house, so that's why I did those. So next slide. So the second year, I went out. My sister is there on the left, and that's her painting. And the governor of New Mexico got one of her paintings. She lives in Las Cruces, New Mexico. That's one of her paintings on the right. She's older than me, and she grew up out in the plains of Montana, right next to the Cheyenne Indian Reservation, like first grade through middle school there. So that whole Native American culture and those graphic styles and things are really embedded in her art. So next slide. I spent a few days with her, and I did one of my favorite paintings. That's my wife, and then some of you have probably seen this one before because I love it. It's in our bedroom now. It's just so much my wife because the stray cat, she goes over and makes friends with every cat. We're driving down the road, she'll see a cat, meow, meow, and, just always does that. So on our travels, I took this photo, and I thought it would be nice painting. I like that shadow. I like the blue coat with the patterns on it. Well, so there, and next slide. So now I'm on my third year of painting, and I've switched into oils. I just want to show you what process I started using. There's many different ways to approach this, but I'll show you what works for me. So this is a reference photo. Took this summer. This is Camp Sagamore in the Adirondacks, which is one of the great camps there. We got to stay there. It was really cool, whole story in itself. But so that's the start. Next slide. So this is an underpainting. So one thing I learned when you're working on a white canvas and you take some gray and you put it on white, it's going to look much darker than it is really because you're up against white. So it's helpful to have some kind of relative values on there to put your paint down so that it's you're judging it kind of in its own family. So this is just a really rude block in. I use acrylic paint for this. I have the finished painting up here, but this takes 10 minutes, really. It's just really sloppy. I do try to get some values in there that are right. The colors I don't worry about so much. So then, next slide, that's partway done. This one I use a system of painting where I use a lot of, it's called glazing, where you'll have a painting such as this and you want the blue to be deeper, so you mix up some transparent blue paint. There's opaque paints and transparent paints, and you learn which is which over time. Um, and you put some layers of transparent blue on there and at the top, and you kind of feather it out so it's smooth. And when you see this in the light, it's like stacking up, like looking through glass. Eventually, the the depth of color really comes out. You're familiar with the artist Maxfield Parrish. He did a lot of glazing, and he had these deep blues that were just so striking, and I love that color. So that's a landscape painting, and you saw some of the still lifes, and I've kind of gravitated toward landscape work. I'm a landscape architect, seems to make sense. But this isn't necessarily where I'll stay. I'm only 3 years in, and so I expect to evolve into maybe a looser style of painting or something. This weekend, my wife Joanna and I went to the AKG and we saw the Northern Lights show, which is highly recommended. Uh, it's the theme is northern boreal forest paintings from that like 1880s to 1920s. Um, so it's paintings from Scandinavia, Sweden, Finland, Canada, a number of Canadian painters there. Um, and there's some landscape paintings there, and they're really old, but some of them are so loose, and there's so much more feeling in them than what I'm showing here. They're sometimes crude, not really well. Like this is blended out and softened, and the brush strokes are really crude, but they were just amazing. I would recommend it. And incidentally, they have another show, Yayoi Kusama, the Japanese artist that has all the dots on dotted pumpkins, and she has mirrored rooms with strange dotted light things. It's just hilarious. So it's worth the trip there. What's the next slide? Okay, we'll go. We'll um, we'll hold at that one, and maybe we can turn the lights on for a little bit and look at some paintings here. And what I'll do so that um, people at home can see it, I'll try to. Here is I did alter it, but this is something I'd like to work on. This is just like masonite. Um, Strangely, masonite is an archival material. In our house, we have a painting of my dad's family in Sweden that's dated 1927 and is painted on masonite. It's fine. But masonite as a product is no longer made. It's like Xerox or Kleenex. It's called hardboard generically now. So I'll go to Home Depot and get a 4x8 sheet, and they'll cut it into a few pieces for you and give the guy $5 or whatever, and then I can put it in my car. And you can do a lot of paintings for $12 or whatever it costs, $15 a sheet of masonite. Now I like the thinner stuff too. You do have to seal it. So this one is sealed on the back with primer. I seal it really well with primer, and then gesso on top of that so that the oil doesn't come through into the board, which will rot it, or canvas for that matter. You got to use the gesso. The canvas I like only in the larger sizes. Um, Small paintings, like particularly when you photograph them with all the canvas texture, they look pixeled kind of, and it's distracting to me. So the masonite is a smooth surface, or you can texture it with different media, or like stucco, or you can do brush strokes to paint on whatever you like. But I like it kind of smooth. I've been doing some, I'll do these 8x10s. This one looks like it's not sealed on the back, but it's spray shellac. So you know, it's kind of invisible there. This is the same place. I got a lot of painting material from Camp Sagamore a few months ago. Um, so I'm learning. I've tried to do some big ones, you know, 3 feet or so, and I've learned the hard way that you can do a little one first and see if it works out before you commit to doing something big. Um, so sometimes I'll do these little 8x10s. This is a little scene near our home where one evening there was some um, water at the park roadway. We lived by Como Park, and the sun was setting, and I thought it was kind of interesting. So I did that in the sky. I'm kind of interested in skies a lot lately. Um, Going back to the still lifes, this is one I like. And I have a lot of them that I've painted over already. You know, that first 2 year period, I sand them off and get rid of them. So uh, I've been carrying this one around with me through a few shows, and people have just about bought it so many times, but it's still with me. Um, this year was the first year that they really did some shows. They did the show here on the campus in the summer. I did the Keenan Center show, which was a very good show. And then I got into the show at the Chautauqua Institution, and that was the best one by far for me. I sold 11 paintings there. It's a 3 day show. It's a little bit more expensive, but um, people were spending the money down there. And since I'm new to it, I'm selling my paintings for not very much money compared to a lot of the other ones. So I sold this for um, $200 or something like that. You know, probably not even, actually a little less than that with that size. But so they were moving. But I saw people that had paintings that were $2,000 that were not that different from this, and they were buying those right off the wall too. So I'm like, stupid. So, but you know, it's not necessarily to raise money. I'm happy to get rid of them. You know, I just don't need a house full of old paintings. So, because I'm just going to keep painting. Oh, they'll be for sale at the show. So, um, here is a scene. Um, this is based on, you go by Ray's house. Farther out down the road, I don't know what this is called. There's a viewing point there with kind of an interpretive sign. Yeah, and I was out there one evening, and it's not literally it, but it's kind of based on that scene. It's a beautiful place to go and sit and watch the sunset. Put a white frame on it because it's kind of simple. I wanted a really white sky and not go with a blue. It's got white and green. It's simple. Um, was kind of trying to do simple little things for a while. Just a cloud, dark blue, light blue, very simple landscape. I love painting clouds. It's been a little bit of an education how to paint them, but it's so easy in oil paints because the top, usually where the light is going, it's a little more focused, and you can have some kind of detail on the top. The gray part underneath is usually, you can smooth it out with a brush. It's even. There's not a lot of detail there. And with that formula, you know, clouds are just like any other object, an apple or whatever. There's light shining on it from the top or behind or whatever. And so you just take that into consideration, that the light is shining on it, and sometimes it's transparent at the edges. Last night I was driving home. That's one of the benefits of painting, is that I'm driving somewhere, and everywhere I'm just looking around all the time, you know, the way the clouds are. Last night they were gray in the center, and they were backlit, so they were all haloed with very bright white, and it's just this strange pattern of dots there. And sometimes I take pictures from my car window. Oh my God, got to get that. So besides landscapes, I did try to paint a face, and so that's me. I didn't want to embarrass somebody else by painting their face, you know, when I haven't been doing it. So was pretty careful about this. The landscape paintings, I'll free form it, you know. With this one, I actually printed and traced it on carbon paper so that proportions aren't right. Um, and just very carefully worked off the photograph, which worked out okay. But what I learned is like the mouth was just a little off. Took a photo of this and brought in the original photo, overlaid the painting, and adjusted the transparency back and forth. It's a cheating way to see, oh, the mouth is just a tiny bit and then a little brushed up. Oh, it's okay now, you know. so so I'll cheat any way I can, you know, as long as the paint, it's real paint on there. Yeah. Yeah, I almost wore that shirt tonight. In fact, I was thinking about that. So, um, um, I do paint outside. That's one question I get as a landscape painter. Do you go out and paint on plein air? And I do, but I don't like to take the oil paints out. I've done it. And if I were doing it routinely, it would be okay, but it's kind of a mess to set up. So I take a block of watercolor paper, and I'll go out and paint. So that's, you know, I'll wade out into a stream and sit on a rock and do a watercolor. So this is not the right way to do a watercolor painting. This is a few coats of watercolor. I'll use the masket, the frisket mask, sometimes it's called. It's like a rubber cement that you put down, and so paint doesn't go there, and you rub it off very easily, and that preserves the whites. So you have to be very accurate to, once the whites are gone, they're gone, you know, so that's hard. And then another way I cheat is I come back with colored pencil. So this one had a lot of dots that were in with that masking fluid, and then light blue and white line work in there. That's, you just can't replicate that with watercolor. So no, just plain pencil. I can pass this around. You can have a look if you like. Just Prismacolor pencil. And I can crank these out pretty fast. When I was at the Chautauqua Institution, one day I did this one, and I did that sold in one afternoon. So I did 3 other little watercolor paintings. In fact, that one there, I sold that. Only they paid me, but they didn't come back for the painting. The day was gone, and they just didn't come and get. They'll like, I'll pay you, but I'll be back later for it. So it's making me some money. Yeah, they didn't show up. So yeah, so I was just selling them right off the watercolor block. But the paper is off of it's called a block. It's just like a tablet of paper, but the edges are sealed with rubber cement, and you work on it. I use really thick paper, 140-pound, that can hold the water. And then at the end, it's kind of a tear off situation. So when I was here, at one of the presentations, I learned how to take a watercolor and put it on some of these wood blocks. And so I had a collection of these little studies that were just hanging around, and put them on here. And our speaker, I can't remember her name, did a great presentation on watercolor, was saying that you can take cold wax medium and put it over it so it's protected. So it's beeswax with linseed oil, like is in oil paint, mixed together. So you just smear it on like Vaseline, you know, rub it all over. And then in about a week, like the duration of oil paint to dry, that linseed oil dries, and you've got a sealed, you can spill water on it or whatever. So it's really durable. Yeah, you can pass that around. I've got a couple of those. And this one, again, I did at one of the shows. There was a vendor there that was selling apples, so I bought an apple and did a little study of it there. Um, and then I have, let's see, I'll take this down. Um, I have a number of them of houses, kind of, I wouldn't say dilapidated houses, but houses that are not subdivision houses, just kind of out in the country or whatever. I like that sort of starkness of them, just really simple colors and things. And this was um, in March, where the grass at the end of the month just starts to turn green, and the light changes, so that there's this blue and green that I was really going for as the main idea of this, those two colors. Um, Here you'll see that I used this glazing technique on the blue, and there's sort of a halo effect around there, so you get that depth. I actually use you spread it on with a conventional brush, and then I use a shaving brush that you put shaving cream on with, those big wide ones, and just kind of stipple it, and then it makes a nice even gradient for that glazing color on there. So this one is belongs to my son because that's the view out his window. So he likes it. So um, here is a painting that I came to a meeting here, and it was summer, and I got out, and it was still nice. So I went out to Knox Farm and took a walk around. It was one of those beautiful evenings where it was just the right temperature, and so many people were coming out. There was two groups of wedding photographers there with that nice quality of light and the distance, and so it was a really picturesque. Some of you might recognize this place. There's a little walkway in front, so it's called Bluebird Box. The occasional, boxes out there. So, whoops. Okay, how are we doing? All right. So that's my show of my paintings. Like I said, I'm still learning a lot, so I'm not quite sure where I'm going yet, but it's kind of exciting to not have it planned out for me, and I'm starting to find colors I like, and getting better at knocking these things out very quickly. Paintings don't take me very long. Um, a question people say is like, "Wow, how long did that take you?" And my answer is not long enough. It's not like a painting like these two larger ones of actual painting time, 6 hours maybe. Yeah, but they're on the easel a lot. So with the glazing, they're there, 10 minutes, and then I got to let that dry, and then next week I'll come back or whatever. So they're around, and that's one of the things I like about this process is having two or three going at once, and they're kind of a puzzle. You saw that underpainting and what a mess that was. So that's like a puzzle, and everything that's on there is wrong, but you start to just fix things. And then towards the end of it, maybe 2/3 of the way through, I'll turn off my reference photo or whatever, and then just start ad-libbing to make a compositional. Um, like here, I decided to add this strip of, and it's right at the end when these things kind of come alive. They're sitting around. They're always a problem. I'm never happy with them. And right at the end, a few touches of white here and there or something, and sometimes they kind of suddenly start to work, and that. So not all, most of the time I do. the one thing I've learned about that is the oil paint will adhere to the acrylic chemically, like gesso is an acrylic. So there's not a question about that, but the acrylic has to be thoroughly dry. So I'll do my acrylic and then the next day I'll come back and work oils over it. If I'm in a rush, I'll just do the more common um, fat on lean, start with really lean paint, thin down a lot, and then work from that. So. And did you have a question there? Okay, all right. So we can go back to the slideshow for a little bit. So the chocolate maker thing I kind of left out on my life story because it's kind of a weird left turn. Working as a landscape architect and had a job where I was a new engineering firm. I was the new guy on the block and I was going to retire from there. It was going to be my final job. And it lasted about 18 months before I got laid off. And I saw that coming ahead of time. It got under my skin, to be honest, because I thought I was doing a better job than a lot of people around me. So, the decision, fine, but I thought, I don't want to be in this position where somebody else is steering my life, So I want to have my own business. The landscape architecture projects were a little lean at that time. So I had this side interest in chocolate. I would, Valentine's Day or whatever, I'd buy some chocolate for my wife and like, this next year I'm going to get something good. This wasn't very good, and try the different places around. And it all seemed to be the same because not knowing behind the scenes is basically the same. It's from the same country, the same places. There's different companies that will sell chocolate, but the people around here were buying blocks of chocolate and then molding it and then putting it on the shelf. So I was traveling in New York and I went to a chocolate maker in Brooklyn called Mass Brothers and tried some of their chocolate, and it's stuff they made there from cocoa beans. They sourced cocoa beans from different countries and they had different flavors. It was really intriguing. The flavors kind of unfolded. They were a lot more complex than the regular chocolate that I've had. And it was intriguing to me. And so I got some equipment, started making chocolate at home. And then this whole layoff thing started. And I thought maybe we could make a business out of this. And so the thing about chocolate, we thought we'll just ease into it. We'll make some at home and sell it, figure out a market for it. But in New York State, you cannot make chocolate at home. You can make baked goods and things. You have to get your kitchen approved by the state, except chocolate, right? Which I don't really understand. It's a low hazard food. There's no danger. It's not like shellfish or anything. So we took a leap of faith and we leased a space in the village of Lancaster, and there it is. And we built this space out while I continued to work as a landscape architect just part-time to get a cash flow going. And then in 2015, we opened for business. My wife is my business partner. She's also a teacher. She teaches history at Erie Community College, and but she does all the social media and she makes some of the confections and things. So it's a nice situation where we work together, but we do our own things separate. There's not really an overlap there. But yeah, so we get, again, the cocoa beans in, roast them. We have grinders, make it all in-house. We're the only people in Western New York that make their own chocolate, surprisingly. And yeah, 10 years in now, so it's going all right. So, okay, what's the next slide?
Was that still there?
Yeah, yeah. I was just there today. I had to go home, get a shower to wash all the cocoa bean aroma off me today. I made a lot of bars today. We'll try some in a little bit, but this is where I'm going to try to connect all the strange interests that I have. So in college, I took a lot of art and photography, where I went to school, we had a master's program in photography, and I started hanging out with those folks. Um, and I was really interested in music, and I worked at the kind of the underground campus station. There was all the music coming out in the early '80s, and the Saturday night shift, and started noticing that all the people that had radio shifts were the same people that were in their master's program in photography. And it's sort of a weird coincidence. And I started paying attention to that later in life. And so I have some examples. So Ansel Adams on the right is a concert pianist. He plays classical. He was a teacher of piano for many years. With classical, he had very strong technical ability, very disciplined. And suddenly, his photography took off. So that was the direction he went. Um, Next slide. Okay. So this is a painter. His name is Clyde Asperveg. He is a highly collected contemporary painter. He's from Montana. Um, nice big paintings. Makes a great living. Has a beautiful studio. He's got some videos on YouTube, and I've always liked his work, so I watched some of his videos. And he talks about growing up in a farmhouse, um, very modest upbringing, but they had a grand piano in there, and everybody played piano. And what an impact that had on his life. When he's describing how he's painting, it's like I've got a little brush here, there's a small, and these are like eighth notes, little touches. And I've got the dark colors are like the bass line, and there's the brass with the brighter colors, and that's the focus. So that's another example of like the visual um, and music kind of going together. And one more slide on this topic. Um, that's a little foggy, but this is a painting I've always liked. It's got a mood to it, Gee, I'm glad I'm not there again, kind of late night bar with at closing time, and that blue color is a beautiful mood, blue green. Whoever painted that is a pretty accomplished painter. You can see, right? Just at the first glance, this is a nice piece of artwork. And you can't read the signature very well, but it's Bob Dylan. This is his, he's done some very nice paintings. So way better than a lot of the things I'm doing. So the next slide. Okay. An old around, I brought a few, brought tea and wine. And so when the lights go on, I'll pass this around. But one more slide. So here's where it's going to tie together a little bit. This lady is Hazel Lee. She lives in Scotland. She's a certified chocolate taster, so that when you enter your chocolate into a competition, there's people that are educated on tasting it and awarding prizes and that. And it's a study in itself. So it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. But she has a unique thing here. She's at the Northwest Chocolate Festival in Seattle. Like a lot of professions, we have trade shows, and so go to Seattle. And this is a group, and they're all holding up little cards. They've done paintings based on the flavor of the chocolate they just tried. So they're all, holding it up, with this color, and cross-referencing and all that. It's kind of fun. Up on the upper right, she has a tasting chart, and I contacted her, and she sent me one of these here. We'll be able to look at that, and we'll see the flavors. This one's obviously not a wheel, but it's color and flavor there too. So it seems to make sense. What's next on the slideshow? Oh, okay. So this is a bento box. And so I'm thinking about this as like an artwork. So there's somebody that's mixing not only foods that are starchy and fruit and vegetables, but mixed temperatures and textures and colors, and like the little fruit are cut out into butterflies. And somebody has not just put down food because they're hungry, but they're making it into an art, not only visually, but with a range of flavors and textures and things too. So let's taste some chocolate together. And you can turn the lights up. You can have something to taste that is a piece of fruit or cookie, maybe something with a lot of flavor, raisins or whatever you have handy. This exercise will work for something other than chocolate. I have two types here. I have a dark, it's Tanzanian, and it has some unusual flavors that I'm not going to prejudice you by telling you what they are, but I'm going to let you try it. And we're going to do this all together as a group so that these flavors kind of unfold and we'll all be kind of on the same page and talk about it as they change as we go. So I'll give you a piece and just hold it until we allow permission to taste your chocolate. So go and if this is going to be too strong of a chocolate, there's a sweeter one coming up. So get a good one. There you go. All right. Does our crew here want? Sure. All right. I'm just going to leave this here. Oh, and I get one too. For sure. Okay. So what we're going to do is just chew this up and just kind of focus on the flavors that unfold. It takes a little time to melt all the chocolate in your mouth, especially if you're talking. Some people like to let it melt in their mouth, but I don't have the patience for that. I have to chew it up. So at the end, I'm going to change this. So here's a question. If you were designing a package for this chocolate, you wanted it to be evocative of this flavor, what color would that package be?
Orange.
It's bright. There's a brightness to it. Yeah. Orange is correct. That's the correct answer. There's no right answer.
I was gonna say purple.
Purple. Yeah.
Me too.
Mhm.
Like dark purple. Yeah.
In the tasting language, that bright flavor is called red fruit. And so even there they attach a color to it. Is it a strawberry or a raspberry or a cherry? Somewhere in between there, we don't know. It's not a specific fruit, it's just red fruit. So purplish. We ended up with a package here, and that's another thing. I designed my own packaging here with the Photoshop skills because we don't have the money to hire everything done and fix the equipment and everything else too. So and design the packaging. So we have this kind of purple there. We're trying to evoke foliage and connection to the trees, so we have these green bits too. But, okay, so we're going to try one that is sweeter. Now, see how it kind of still is in your mouth? It tastes a little different now. So the next one is a type of milk chocolate, and it has some barley malted milk. Milk and malt. And it's a little bit on the sweeter side. So, so there's some salt on the back. well. Get one. Right. Okay. Good. Good, try this. When you get used to the dark chocolate, it tastes really sweet first because you sort of calibrated your taste to something darker. But later it kind of.
I tasted the salt first.
Yeah, right away. The salt comes on. And that's why it's on the outside, not mixed through. Kind of give you that little blast at the beginning. Would that have a different color of package? What would the color be? Tan?
Yes,
That's,
that's what I get.
that's exactly what I would pick too.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I feel like I have caramel in my mouth.
Yes.
You know, and it's sort of that kind of color and that feeling to it. Yeah.
So we can pitch.
Now, I've got a couple of tasting charts passing around, but I'll start this one around to you. And this one again is the one that's specific to chocolate. And Hazel was very interested in my talk, how it would go as a kind of link these two things. So I'll get back in touch with her about that. So to me, to kind of conclude, I'm in raising a couple sons, one of them's a little ADHD, and so, you know, in school you identify that, and I started reading on it a little bit. He's not bad, just a little bit. And I started reading it, and I saw myself in there a lot before there was such a thing. It was hard for me to sit in a classroom and hold still. I managed to do it, you know, and could sit through pre-calculus and all that, but it was tough. It was tough going. But when something caught my interest, I would like just absorb into it, and that's why I've had all these different things going on. I'm still kind of ADHD. I'm chocolate making, painting, landscape architect. That's kind of a unique one. They're so unrelated to each other, so until I explain that makes sense. So any questions on that? If you, that wraps it up for me. Try our chocolate. There's more chocolate here too, so feel free.
Since you dropped the 2 acres, you ever tried painting with chocolate?
It's all the same color, but
No, not necessarily.
That's true.
We have an artist that paints with coffee.
We
use
have-
various shades.
we have whites, and there's some colors you can add. We've had some green, like matcha tea white, and some unusual things like that. My wife makes truffles and bonbons. I make chocolate bars, but she does the little artistic little pieces. She'll decorate them really nicely. So with a piece of fruit on it, or a little swirl of white chocolate or whatever. All right.
My question is, you've had this sort of evolution of your artwork as you progress from, subject to subject. Did you find yourself in the same sort of process with the chocolate, where you're sort of evolving, moving to different explorations? Or is it more like a technical?
It's more like a technical thing that I am a chocolate maker, and wife makes these good chocolate. I get all these flavors and things, but it's not something I'm doing. I'm searching. I try many different kinds of cocoa beans. People send me samples from different countries around the world, and try them. Test batch maker, and I try to find a range of flavors that
So brights and standard, like the milk chocolates are, people have an expectation that milk chocolate tastes a certain way. So we tasted that Tanzanian that has a bright, that would probably not make a very good milk chocolate. Well, it might, but it would be so unusual, it might be off-putting to some people, you know, because they're expecting, because we expect something.
Yeah, they have their expectations
Yeah,
of what it should
yeah.
taste like.
Does that answer your?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Perfect.
What is your best seller chocolate?
You know, the malted, so the malted is our best selling, right, and some wholesale accounts for that. We used to sell over at the Cornerstone Cafe here, but I understand they closed out this summer, so. Flowers by Nature, usually carries a few of ours. And we sell them online and, Whole Foods Market, and like some typical lots, and a few places in Buffalo. So, you can find them online. It's easy to find us. Lancaster, New York, chocolate, best chocolate in Lancaster, New York, something like that will come right up. Every time.
Everything with chocolate.
All right. All set.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.